Good morning and welcome to Boom the Boom podcast. I'm your host, General Groves, and today we have a very special guest by the name of Leo Szilard. Leo here is a scientist who helped to create the atomic bomb. We're here today to have a very civil conversation about whether or not the atomic bombs were justified.
Hi, General Groves. Thank you so much for inviting me onto your podcast. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
Me too. First, I would like to start by addressing the belief that the atomic bomb left long-term effects on the Japanese people.
Yes, well, I don't think it's just a belief, but okay. There are media reports of the survivors of the atomic bomb having radiation poisoning and burns as an effect of...
Well, that's all clearly a lie.
Okay.
I mean, those people who claim to have radiation sickness simply have some thermal burns. I mean, they might see some redness or some blisters, but it's no big deal at all. I mean, those reports are just propaganda, really, in an attempt to gain our sympathy. But we're not stupid, and we definitely won't fall for that.
Okay, but what about the reports? I thought they were all really credible sources.
You can't believe everything that you see nowadays. But trust me, because I'm a general, and I know exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay, well, if that's true, what about why didn't you guys tell them exactly where you guys were gonna drop the bombs?
Well, Leo, if we were to have told them that the exact place where we were going to drop the bombs, they would have placed their own American prisoners in that exact area, and we would have ended up hitting our very own people instead of the intended targets. Our intended targets were military locations and factories in Japan. We aimed for those places as a way of defending ourselves from the military weapons that were being created there. We were even kind enough to give them a list of possible places that we were going to drop the bombs.
You know, that's an interesting point, but were those intended targets, children and innocent people?
Well, what about our own country's children and innocent people? I mean, it was our duty to drop those bombs. We had to end the war to save our American lives, our American children and innocent people. I mean, dropping the atomic bombs saved more lives than if we would have tried to invade Japan or another option. We tried to also save Japanese lives and end the war through negotiations, but Japan wouldn't budge. We had no choice to drop those bombs because of Japan's stubbornness.
You're making some interesting points, but who's to say this wasn't motivated by racism? I mean, how come you chose to drop the bombs on Japanese, but not other opposing countries? That makes no sense.
Well, it's not about racism at all, actually. We were forced to take aggressive measures on Japan, specifically because of their unwillingness to surrender, and also because of their attack on our own soil, our naval base on Pearl Harbor. This has nothing at all to do with race.
Okay, well, if it has nothing to do with race, then that's fine. But, it does make sense. But why didn't you guys just accept Japan's terms of them being able to keep their emperor?
Japan's terms? Well, let me ask you this. What makes you believe that their terms were reasonable at all? I mean, have you even heard them? If you heard them, you wouldn't think. Why should we have agreed to them?
Well, no, I haven't heard them, so I guess, you're right about that. But I'm assuming the negotiations were reasonable because they didn't kill or hurt anyone, so therefore the terms must have not been harmful.
Well, I don't know what you're thinking about, but keeping Japan's Emperor Hirohito in power would have resulted in even more deaths because he didn't care about his citizens at all. So he would have let them all die before he surrendered himself. I mean, you're an American. You should join the other Americans that are showing gratitude for the hard decision the president and other government officials had to make because it ultimately saved you and other American citizens' lives.
That does make sense. I am an American, and I guess I am being ungrateful. I can't believe that anyone would ever think that the bombs were unjustified. Now that you put it that way and you've told me all your information, I now realize how uneducated I was on the subject. and you've really opened my eyes to the truth. Thank you.
Of course, I'm so glad to hear that, and it's great to see people like you who have been so brainwashed to believe that the bombs were anything but justified, and to see you discovering the truth. The reality is that the US dropped the atomic bombs as a way of defending themselves and saving both Japanese and American lives. And I hope you can come to the right decision just like Leo here did. Leo, thank you for coming and having this important conversation with me.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm honored to be here and to be able to finally make the right choice. You have really opened my eyes to see the truth and guided me in the right direction. So thank you.
Of course. This is General Groves from Boom the Boom Podcast signing off. Thank you all.